What do you mean? What are you even saying that? I don't think you understand how this policy works. Zach Polanski and hard left Labour MPs absolutely are open borders but will not admit it. Okay, so if those are baby steps, please tell us your plan, Kimmy. Shabana's gonna be the next Prime Minister and it's gonna be fucking awesome. That's crazy. That's crazy. That is a good response to the fucking tone policing though. Holy fuck. Dude, Shabana's awesome. She's so good. Oh my god, it's so fucking good.
I'm sorry to find that the Reform Party is living rent-free in so many people's heads. I can assure...
Future PM, future PM.
Now, breaking news, the government has released the document announcing sweeping changes to the asylum system in a bid to make the UK less attractive for illegal migrants. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins me now. John, this has just dropped on the government's website, hasn't it? Just quickly scanning through it, the Prime Minister talking about how the world has changed. It is more volatile and insecure, with increased conflict leading to significant increase in the movement of people across the globe. Our asylum system was not designed to cope with this, he says. Briefly, what's contained in here?
Well, here it is, Jane, 33 pages of it, literally hot off the press. It's still warm. The title is Restoring Order and Control, and it's basically, it sets out all the measures that we've heard from...
It literally is like totally... It's so new that they're literally like manually scrolling down the statement on like a fucking iPad for the presentation.
The title is Restoring Order and Control, and it's basically...
That's how
it
just like absolutely crazed about immigration people are right now. Is the news is like literally, don't even wait. Don't even wait to get it together. We need immediately the policy, the statement laid out. What's happening to immigrants? What's happening to asylum seekers?
All the measures that we've heard from the Home Secretary over the weekend. Those words you've just quoted from the Prime Minister, Jane, are the foreword written by the Prime Minister, and then there's one by the Home Secretary. She talks about an increasingly volatile and more mobile world. Huge numbers of people are on the move. And then it gets into the various chapters. For example, Part 1, reducing arrivals, protection rights, a core protection offer for refugees, shortened leave to remain, we know about, a longer path in settlement, protection, work and study visa route, new requirements on family reunion, reduced right to public funds. The next chapter is asylum support. After that, there's a section on illegal working. And then there's a big section on part 2, increasing removals, removing failed asylum seekers. Continue the French returns pilot, which has been much criticised, the one-in, one-out scheme. Resuming removals to certain countries, and visa penalties, which we've learned about earlier today.
Oh yeah, so apparently if places like the Congo don't take back their refugees, their asylum seekers, then we're going to start banning them from getting visas. Like all their business people and politicians won't be able to come to the UK.
We will act against countries who fail to cooperate with the return of their citizens, including through imposing visa penalties, as that's provided in an Act of Parliament from 2022. This could include suspending the granting of entry clearance for nationals of a country until it takes back its citizens who are in the UK illegally. Those are the main proposals. Now, I can tell you that in the past hour, it's been Home Office questions in the House of Commons, and didn't have to wait very long for a clash between the Home Secretary and a Labour backbencher. Here's the document, by the way, 33 pages of it.
We'll take a look at that
early on in Home Office questions, there was a pretty...
I don't want to spoil it. I want to just see Shabana doing the questions. Yeah. Let's pull this up. Apparently, I've heard a rumour that she swore in the House of Commons earlier. Is that correct? Is that true? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. With your permission, I will make a statement about how we restore order and control to our borders. I do so as this government publishes the most significant reform to our migration system in modern times. This country will always offer sanctuary to those fleeing danger. But we must also acknowledge that the world has changed, and our asylum system has not changed with it. Our world is a more volatile and more mobile place. Huge numbers are on the move. While some are refugees, others are economic migrants seeking to use and abuse our asylum system. And even genuine refugees are passing through other safe countries, searching for the most attractive place to seek refuge. The burden that has fallen on this country has been heavy. 400,000 have sought asylum here in the last 4 years. Over 100,000 people now live in asylum accommodation, and over half of refugees remain on benefits 8 years after they have arrived. To the British public who foot the bill, the system feels out of control and unfair. It feels that way because it is. The pace and scale of change has destabilised communities. It is making our country a more divided place. There will never be a justification for the violence and racism of a minority. But if we fail to deal with this crisis, we will draw more people down a path that starts with anger and ends in hatred. I have no doubt about who we really are in this country. We are open, tolerant, and generous. But the public rightly expect that we can determine who enters this country and who must leave. To maintain the generosity that allows us to provide sanctuary, we must restore order and control. Rather than deal substantively with this problem, the last Conservative government wasted precious years and £700 million
Yes, we are. We're not perfect, but look at the world at large. Compared to most countries, yes, the UK is a pretty accepting and tolerant place. Even with a bunch of fucking loser gammons.
Their failed Rwanda plan, with the lamentable result of just 4 volunteers removed from the country. As a result, they left us with the grotesque chaos of asylum seekers housed in hotels, shuttled around in taxis, with the taxpayer footing the bill. My predecessor as Home Secretary picked up this dreadful inheritance and rebuilt the foundations of a collapsed asylum system. Decision-making has been restored, with a backlog now 18% lower than when we entered office. Removals have increased, reaching nearly 50,000 under this government. Immigration enforcement has hit record levels, with over 8,000 arrests in the last year. The Border Security Bill is progressing through Parliament, and my predecessor struck a historic agreement with the French, which means small boat arrivals can now be sent back to France. These are vital steps, but we must go further. Today we have published Restoring Order and Control, a new statement on our asylum policy. Its goals are twofold. Firstly, to reduce illegal arrivals into this country, and secondly, to increase removals of those with no right to be here. It starts by accepting an uncomfortable truth. While asylum claims fall across Europe, they are rising here. And that is because of the comparative generosity of our asylum offer, when compared to so many of our European neighbours. This generosity is a factor that draws people to these shores on a path that runs through other safe countries. Nearly 40% come on small boats and over perilous channel crossings, but a roughly equal number come here legally via a visitor, work or study visa and then go on to claim asylum. They do so because refugee status is the most generous route into this country. An initial grant lasts 5 years, which is then converted almost automatically into permanent settled status. In other European countries, things are done differently. In Denmark, refugee status is temporary and they provide safety and sanctuary until it is possible for a refugee to return home. In recent years, asylum claims have hit a 40-year low. And now, across Europe, countries are tightening their systems in similar ways. We must act too. We will do so by making refugee status temporary, not permanent. A grant of refugee status will last 2.5 years, not 5. It will be renewed only if it is impossible for a refugee to return home. Permanent settlement will now come at 20 years, not 5. I know this country welcomes people who contribute, and for those who want to stay and are willing and able to, we will create a new work and study visa route solely for refugees, with a quicker path to permanent settlement.
I think this makes total sense. I think anyone that cries about this is just being like, you know, just say you want open borders at that point, right? If our claims are going up, others are falling. Clearly we're doing something wrong. We don't want to just be taking the... People have to share the burden of refugees. That is the case. You do have to take some refugees. And you do have to, you know, stop a bunch of stateless people from building up in just like fucking some shithole corner of the world. People do have to bear their burden. But we shouldn't be bearing more of a burden than anyone else. And if you don't accept that, then yeah, you just need to admit that you want open borders. Yeah, imagine, right, Orange Banana, imagine.
To encourage refugees into work, we will also consult on removing benefits for those who are able to work but choose not to. Outside of the most exceptional circumstances, family reunion will not be possible, with a refugee only able to bring family over if they have joined a work and study route and if qualifying tests are met. While over 50,000 were granted refugee status in the last year, more than 100,000 claimants and failed asylum seekers remain in taxpayer-funded accommodation. And we know that criminal gangs use the prospect of free bed and board to promote their small boat crossings. We have already announced that we will empty asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament, and we are exploring a number of large
leaving
military...
the EU is definitely part of it. But it is also just true that the UK has a more generous offer. It's like they get to apply again in the UK and we have like this generous offer. So, I mean, we just need to bring it more in line with other comparative countries. Like, so copying Denmark, I think, is a good way to go.
Sites as an alternative. We will now also remove the 2005 legislation that created a duty to support asylum seekers.
Yeah, of course there's going to be a bunch of people that still just lie and say there's going to be that they have free beds. Well, they do get a free bed, to be fair. They do actually get put up in a room. That is true. They do get a bed. That is true. But that doesn't do anything about the fact there are real issues here, right? Like, we have all these illegal high street shops selling illegal products are often dangerous. Money that's being spent and earned that isn't being taxed. There are problems that arise from this that are genuine problems. Okay, but you're saying just don't do anything about it, right? You're going, but they're just going to lie anyway. It's like, well, yeah, but you still have to do something about the problem. There's a legitimate problem there, and there's a problem that lots of people are concerned about, not just the most insane liars on the right wing. Yeah, you're like scum, Michelle, if you're saying shit like that. Seriously, they sell, like, dangerous tobacco to kids, right? They sell tobacco with fucking asbestos in it to kids. Like, you're just saying just let poor people fucking die. Don't solve this issue that is, like, hurting poor communities. Because, oh, you're retarded if you buy sketchy drugs. Like, just, like, seriously, it's, like, fucking retarded.
Reverting to a legal power to do so instead. While we will continue to support those who play by the rules, those who do not...
Yeah, this is like defund the police type mindset. This is like literally defund the police type mindset. I don't care if you got an ad. That's good. You can go for a full 24 hours.
Be that through criminality or antisocial behaviour, can have their support removed. We will also remove our duty to support those who have a right to work. It is right that those who do receive support pay for it if they can. So those with income or assets will have to contribute to the cost of their stay. This will end the absurdity that we currently experience, where an asylum seeker receiving £800 each month...
No, so that right now asylum seekers can't work, but what they've just said is that they're going to have an asylum seeker refugee only work and study visa that asylum seekers and refugees can get to start earning a path to citizenship. Basically, start earning a path to permanent stay by engaging in society and paying their taxes and shit.
Month from his family, and who had recently acquired an Audi, was receiving free housing at the taxpayer's expense, and the courts judged that we could do nothing about it. Mr. Speaker, these measures are designed to tackle the pull factors that draw people into this country. But reducing the number of
like language requirements as well, Orange Banana. I think that's what they were talking about at one point anyway. I guess we'll see. Maybe they talk about it.
Is just half of the story.
There's like a bunch of
We must also enforce our rules and remove those who have no right to be here. This will mean restarting removals to countries where they have been paused. In recent months, we have begun voluntary removal of failed asylum seekers to Syria once again. However, there are still many failed asylum seekers here from Syria, most of whom fled a regime that has since been toppled. Other countries are planning to enforce removals, and we will follow suit.
It's time for the Syrians to go back. Al-Shara's in charge now. Go back to your Al-Qaeda leader. He's fucking awesome. We love Al-Shara here. We love Al-Shara here. Dude, Al-Shara is just fucking awesome. I can't lie. I do just think he's like so fucking cool. Where's the basketball video? Him playing basketball with the US troops. Is the image of him with severed heads real? Oh, that's not him. It's not him. I just googled it. It's not him. Photos of someone else misattributed. Yeah, Al-Shara's fucking awesome. Even if it was him in the photo with severed heads, I would still say he's fucking awesome. In fact, he might even be cooler.
Where a failed asylum seeker cannot be returned home, we will also continue to explore the possibility of return hubs.
Dude, it's so funny the way Trump talks about Al-Shara as well. Like, just this bizarre, like, homoerotic, like, oh yeah, he's a very strong man with great eyes. Like,
with negotiations ongoing. We must remove those who have failed asylum claims, regardless of who they are. Today, we are not removing family groups, even when we know that their home country is perfectly safe. There are, for instance, around 700 Albanian families living in taxpayer...
Did you guys see that tweet that was going around that was saying that there was reporting that said Ghislaine Maxwell had a horse called Baba? Did you guys see that?
...funded accommodation having failed their asylum claims. This is true despite an existing returns agreement.
I don't know if that's even true. It's just like so funny. It's just so funny.
Albania is a signatory to the European Convention on Human Rights. So we will now begin the removal of families. Where possible, we will encourage a...
I think blowing a horse would honestly do more damage to him than like fucking some 15-year-old or 14-year-old. I think PR-wise, that would actually hurt more.
Voluntary return. But where an enforced return is necessary, that is what we will do. Where the barrier to a return is not the individual, nor the UK government, but the receiving country, we will take action. I can announce today that we have told Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Namibia that if they do not comply with international rules and norms, we will impose visa penalties on them. And I am sending a wider message here. Unless other countries heed this lesson, further sanctions will follow. Much of the delay in our removals, however, comes from the sclerotic nature of our own system. In March of this year, the appeals backlog stood at 51,000 cases. This government has already increased judicial sitting days, but reform is required. So we will create a new appeals body staffed by professional independent adjudicators, and we will ensure there is early legal representation available to advise claimants and ensure their issues are properly considered. Cases with a low chance of success will be fast-tracked, and claimants will have just one opportunity to claim and one to appeal, ending the merry-go-round of claims and appeals that frustrate so many removals. While some barriers to removal are the result of process, others are substantive issues related to the law itself. There is no doubt that the expanded interpretation of parts of the European Convention on Human Rights has contributed. This is particularly true of Article 8, the right to a family life. The courts have adopted an ever-expanding interpretation of this right, and as a result, many people have been allowed to come to this country when they would otherwise have had no right to. And we have been unable to remove others when the case for doing so seems overwhelming. This includes cases like an arsonist sentenced to 5 years in prison, whose deportation was blocked on the grounds that his relationship with his sibling may suffer. And more than half of those detained are now delaying or blocking their removal by raising a last-minute rights claim. Article 8 is a qualified right. That means we are not prevented from removing individuals or refusing an application to move to the UK if it is in the public interest. To narrow Article 8 rights, we will therefore make 3 important changes in both domestic law and our immigration rules. Firstly, we will define what exactly a family is, narrowing this down to parents and their children. Secondly, we will define the public interest.
It's only for parents and their children. That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. Does that mean just like direct lineage? Like, what about grandparents? I feel like that would be like legit. I don't know, man.
Interest test, so the default becomes a removal or refusal, with Article 8 rights only permissible in the most exceptional circumstances. Thirdly...
But I understand not... Like, you shouldn't be able to basically just, like, marry someone for asylum-seeking purposes or some shit like that, and you shouldn't be able to, like, use tenuous, you know, shit like, oh, my relationship with my sibling's gonna suffer if you deport me after my arson. Like, you shouldn't be able to do shit like that, obviously. Maybe parents their kids sound a little bit strict? I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's that insane, because the alternative is insane too, right? The current type is insane too, where it's your relationship with your sibling might suffer so you can't be deported. That's like retarded. That's so fucking dumb.
We will tighten where Article 8 claims can be heard, ensuring only those who are living in the UK can lodge a claim rather than their family members overseas, and that all claims are heard first by the Home Office and not in a courtroom. We will also pursue international reform of a second element of the European Convention, the application of Article 3, the prohibition on torture and inhuman, degrading treatment or punishment. We will never return...
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of those Labour seats are threatened by reform, so they're not gonna defect.
...anyone to be tortured in their home country. But the definition of degrading treatment has expanded into the realm of the ridiculous. Today we have criminals we seek to deport, but discover we cannot because the prisons in their home country have cells that are deemed too small. Or even mental health provision.
Wait, what do you mean? What if it's your only sibling and your parents are dead and you aren't an arsonist? You'll never be allowed back in on a visa after claiming asylum. What? You can get a permanent path, right? What do you mean? What are you even saying that? I don't think you understand how this policy works. The instance they were talking about was someone was trying to be deported and they couldn't. This is just about reinterpreting the ECHR. The ECHR, Article 8 of the ECHR, gives people a right to a family life. That's a qualified right that can be overruled if it's in the public interest. There are situations where judges in this country have ruled you can't deport this person because even though they've committed a crime, because their sibling needs them or whatever, that's retarded. So it needs to be changed in interpretation in some way. So they're limiting the scope of which family it is, among other things. Now, separately, asylum seekers are being given a new type of visa that they can apply for. That is a work and study path to stay visa, where they are able to work and study and achieve whatever milestones the government wants from them in order to earn a quicker permanent right to stay. But we are no longer going to have, but the basic time to stay for people who claim asylum and don't jump through those hoops, the basic time to stay before you get permanent stay is now going to be 20 years instead of 5. Additionally, if you're an asylum seeker, you have to reapply, renew your thing every 2.5 years. And if your home country is safe, then you have to go back. So that's roughly the changes that are happening.
That is not as good as our own. As Article 3 is an absolute right, a public interest test cannot be applied. For that reason, we are seeking reform at the Council of Europe. And we do so alongside international partners who have raised similar concerns. But it is not just international law that binds us. According to data from 2022, over 40% of those detained for removal claimed they were modern-day slaves. This well-intentioned law is being abused by those who seek to frustrate a legitimate removal.
How is it keeping people from integrating? How is it keeping people from integrating? They can apply for a work and study visa that lets them earn a sooner permanent stay. They can integrate. They can apply for the permanent path to stay. If they don't do that, then they have to keep renewing every 2.5 years until they get to the 20-year mark. And then at the 20-year mark, they get their permanent stay. But if you actually play ball, if you actually integrate, you get it sooner. Well, how is it stopping people from integrating? Yeah, this is a new asylum seeker only work-study visa. Then what's the point of the increase from 5 to 20? Because compared to other European countries, our offer is incredibly generous because you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is be in the country for 5 years, and then you get permanent stay. So our asylum claims going up when others go down because we're an attractive place to go, because you have that guaranteed. You just have to be here for 5 years, and then you get it.
Removal. So I will bring forward legislation that tightens the modern slavery system to ensure that it protects those it was designed for and not those who seek to abuse it. Taken together, Madam Deputy Speaker, these are significant reforms. They are designed to ensure...
It's great for all parties in general, just not for to be honest, not Greens. The thing is that, lefties will never admit this in the open, but they're all open borders. Like, super actual lefties are all just open borders. That's what they want. They don't want any immigration enforcement. Like, any immigration enforcement is going to piss them off. Because they just want everyone to be able to go anywhere all the time. And in an ideal world, I might agree with them. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where each country has its own immigration policies, and those have knock-on effects that cause, issues in different countries. When, like, a whole bunch of asylum seekers from one country suddenly show up in a different country, and no one else is bearing the burden of dispersing those people. Like, that can cause problems. So you have to have your immigration policy at least roughly in line with your neighbours, so you don't just get completely fucked.
Our asylum system is fit for the modern world, and that we retain public consent for the very idea of providing refuge. We will always be a country that offers protection to those fleeing peril, just as we did in recent years when Ukraine was invaded, when Afghanistan was evacuated, and when we repatriated Hong Kongers. For that reason, as order and control is restored, we will open new, capped, safe and legal routes into this country.
You're giving a hard take right now. No, I'm not. Zach Polanski and hard left Labour MPs absolutely are open borders but will not admit it. That is absolutely just true. If you don't see that, you're retarded. I would love to see Zach Polanski pitch his solution for the immigration crisis. In fact, if you said to him, Zach, what's your policy for the immigration crisis? He would go, well, I think framing it as a crisis in the first place is probably playing into a right thing. That's how his answer would start. So, I'm just saying that I'm absolutely right about this. I will take no disagreement.
These will make sponsorship the primary means by which we resettle refugees, with voluntary and community organisations given greater involvement to both receive refugees and support them, working within caps set by government. We will also create a new route for displaced students to study.
Zach could not hit Imagine like Maduro did, bro. This was crazy, man.
This was Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro at a rally this weekend, leading supporters as they sang John Lennon's peace anthem, Imagine. The rally comes as tensions grow between Washington and Caracas. U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested he has made a decision on a course of military action against Venezuela, and a huge military aircraft carrier has now arrived in the region. For the latest on the situation in Venezuela, we are joined by journalist Cody Weddle in Bogota, Colombia. Cody, the USS Gerald Ford, which is the world's largest aircraft carrier, has arrived in the Caribbean, now within striking distance of Venezuela. So how does this escalate the situation?
My Venezuelan colleagues started visibly shaking in anger when we showed them this video at work today. Oh my God.
In the UK, and another for skilled refugees to work here. And of course, we will always remain flexible to new crises across the world as they happen. I know the British people do not want to close the doors, but until we restore order and control, those who seek to divide us will grow stronger. It is our job as a Labour government to unite.
Pisco asked Connor about Venezuela today, and he said it was okay because Maduro is communist. Okay, Connor is like actually subhuman.
Where there is division. So we must now build an asylum system for the world as it is, one that restores order and control, one that opens safe and legal routes to those fleeing danger across the world, and one that sustains our commitment to providing refuge for this generation and those to come. I know the country we are. We are open, tolerant, and generous. We are the Greater Britain that those on this side of the House believe in, not the littler England that some would wish we would become. These reforms are designed to bring unity where others seek to divide. Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend this statement to the House.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Right, what fucking whinging are we gonna get from Kemi? I feel like Shabana is gonna just fucking destroy Kemi. I feel like it's not gonna be close.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of his statement, most of which I read in the Sunday Telegraph.
Oh, well, how can you support the stream? Well, guys, if you're one of the 187 people watching right now, or specifically one of the 167 who haven't liked the stream, if you don't mind moving your cursor, thumbs up and clicking it, or pressing a thumbs up on your mobile device, that'd be hugely appreciated. But if you want to take your support one step further, you can donate directly through the Stream Elements link in the pinned chat message. You can also buy a membership to the channel, gift a membership to the channel, gift a whole bunch of memberships randomly throughout the chat, buy a super chat, which will highlight your message and read it out on TTS, or buy a super sticker, which is a YouTube image or GIF that will be highlighted in chat, and I'll describe it to you. You can go to discord.gg/Kuihman, twitter.com/Kuihman, or reddit.com/r/Kuihman. Thank you.
Actually, but I am pleased that she is bringing forward
Seriously, fuck you.
measures to crack down on illegal immigration. It's not enough, but it is a start, and it's also a change. It's a change from her previous position in opposition of a general amnesty for illegal migrants. But I do want to praise the new Home Secretary, Madam Deputy Speaker. She's bringing fresh energy and a clearer focus to this problem, and she has got more done in 70 days in the job than her predecessor did in a year. She seems to get what many on the benches behind refuse to accept. She is right to say that if we fail to deal with the crisis, we will draw more people to a path that starts with anger and ends in hatred. But we will also allow our English Channel to operate as an open route into this country for anyone prepared to risk their lives and pay criminal gangs. This is not.
What is the thing on the table? The golden staff. It's like a royal mace. It's like a royal mace. It's there to, like, symbolize, like, the authority of the house or whatever.
Fair. It is not fair on British citizens. It is not fair on those who come here legally, and it is not fair on those in genuine need who are pushed to the back of the queue because the system is overwhelmed. Anyone who cannot see by now that simply tinkering with the current system isn't going to fix this problem is either living in la-la land or being willfully obstructive. It is a shame that it has taken Labour a year in office to realise there is a borders crisis. Yes. I don't know why they're chuntering. What was their first act in government? Her predecessor's first act was to...
Yeah, they just put, like, a gold deagle in the fucking Senate or some shit.
Scrap the Rwanda plan, which was already, yes, they're cheering, it was already starting to act as a deterrent before it even got off the ground. And before it started, Labour threw away all of our hard work, the taxpayers' money. They're the ones who have wasted their money, not us. But this statement, Madam Deputy Speaker, is an admission that her predecessor's immigration...
Wait, what was that?
Cheering, it was already... What was their first act in government? Her predecessor's first act was to scrap the Rwanda plan.
Dude, there's no way. They're actually running with this line, man. They actually keep running with this line. Oh, why didn't you at least try the Rwanda plan? Why didn't you just try... Because it was retarded. It had a max capacity of like 100. No one had even left. There was one person set to leave. It was pointless. It was fucking pointless.
There is a borders crisis. Yes. I don't know why they're chuntering. What was their first act in government? Her predecessor's first act was to scrap the Rwanda plan, which was already, yes, they're cheering, it was already starting to act as a deterrent before it even got off the ground. And before it started, Labour threw away all of our hard work, the taxpayers' money. They're the ones who have wasted...
I don't think there's any evidence that that was actually causal in a reduction of asylum seeking.
...to their money, not us. But this statement, Madam Deputy Speaker, is an admission that her predecessor's immigration and borders bill will not work. But I'm glad to see them now changing course. The powers they're using in this bill, they all voted down when we were in government. They wouldn't be able to do that if we hadn't got it through. None of them know the work that was done. They're just cheering nonsensically, but we know what has happened since they came into office. In fact, the Home Secretary will know that in the 70 days that she has been in office, 10,000 people have crossed the channel. And in the last year, we have seen record levels of asylum claims. The problem has got worse since Labour came into office and is getting even worse by the day. But I am afraid to tell her that what she is announcing is not going to work on its own. And some of these measures will, in fact, take us backwards. I say that to her with no ill will, and I hope she believes me when I say I genuinely want her to succeed. Because on this side of the House, we are speaking from experience. We know how difficult this is. It is, we are. And we're not going to take any lectures from the people who voted down every single measure to control immigration. Some of the measures she is announcing today, Madam Deputy Speaker, are undoubtedly positive steps. Baby steps, but positive nonetheless. We welcome making refugee status temporary, and we welcome...
Okay, so if those are baby steps, please tell us your plan, Kemi.
...removing the last Labour government's legislation that created a duty to support asylum seekers. She's right to do that. Yeah. However, some of what she is announcing simply does not go far enough. On this side of the House, we believe that anyone who arrives illegally, especially from safe countries, should be deported and banned from claiming asylum. Does the Home Secretary agree that anyone who comes to this country illegally should be deported? I'd like to know. I think the country would like.
Okay. Like, you really can't think of any situations where you'd want to let someone like that in. I feel like literally just take it. Just think, right? Why was the ECHR made? It is just one of those things where it's like, don't take down offense that you can't explain why it was put up. Why was the ECHR made? The ECHR was made after World War II, after the Holocaust, to try and prevent something like that happening again in Europe, and try and make sure that countries did their part in ensuring the safety of people who might be targeted. So let's just imagine there's another Holocaust, the thing that this was set up to prevent. Let's just imagine that. And someone flees from this hypothetical second Holocaust and goes through several safe countries and then arrives in our country. Well, would we want to deport that person? Would we really want to deport that person? Or would we actually say, no, we understand why you've made that dangerous legal journey. It's okay. We're going to process your claim anyway. I feel like we would probably want to process the claim anyway. Like, most people probably agree on that. Stop smiling, chat, dude.
To know, because this announcement means that some people who arrive will be allowed to stay. They just need to wait 20 years before getting permanent settlement. That does not remove the pull factor. But the main problem is that for as long as the UK is in the ECHR, illegal immigrants and those exploiting our system will use human rights laws to block anything she does to solve this. I know this because I saw it happen again and again over the last 4 years. I know she is seeing it too. We even saw it this year with the Prime Minister's one-in, one-out scheme, which has seen people return to France come back yet again on small boats. I can guarantee that her plan to reinterpret Article 8 will not work. We tried this already. Strasbourg and UK case law will prevail. And I agree with her that the definition of degrading treatment is overinterpreted. But renegotiating Article 3 internationally will take years. Years we don't have, if it were even possible, but the fact is, it isn't. We know this because a small group of EU countries tried this earlier and they were dismissed by the Secretary General of the Council of Europe. Her government did nothing to support them, so I'm not convinced that it's the Prime Minister's negotiating skills that are going to sort out that problem. The fact is, we have looked at this issue from every possible direction, and the reality is that any plan that doesn't include leaving the ECHR as a necessary step is wasting time we don't have. Just like their plan to smash the gangs or the one-in, one-out policy, it is time wasting and it is doomed to fail because of lawfare. We have seen this all before. The tough measures will be challenged in the courts and blocked. The new legal routes she's talking about will be exploited, and the numbers arriving on our shores and disappearing into the black economy will keep on rising. If the Home Secretary is serious about reducing these numbers, and I do believe that she is, she must be bolder. She must take steps to deter illegal immigrants from coming to Britain and deport them as soon as they arrive. Our borders plan does just that, and I know that she has studied it in detail. I've seen the looks. I know that she knows that we would leave the ECHR and ECAT to stop the Strasbourg court from frustrating deportations, that we'd establish a new removals force to make sure all illegal arrivals are deported. We would end the use of immigration tribunals, judicial review, and legal aid in immigration cases. Those are the things that are slowing us down. And we will sign returns agreements that are backed by visa sanctions to ensure we send illegal arrivals back to their place of origin. I welcome what she's talking about on Angola and Namibia, but all of us in this House know that they are not the ones creating the biggest problems. We need to be bold, serious, and unafraid to do what the British people demand: secure our borders. That is what is in our borders plan. So I urge her to take me up on my offer to work together, not just because we have some ideas she might find useful, but because, judging by her own backbenchers' reaction today, she may find our votes come in handy. Earlier this year, we saw what happened when the government tried to make changes to the welfare bill. the Prime Minister was defeated by his own backbenchers and ended up passing legislation guaranteeing that more money would be spent on welfare. And it doesn't appear that his grip on the party has improved since then. So you can be sure that the MPs behind the Home Secretary are already plotting to block any serious changes she tries to make. We can help her with that. Why are they shaking their heads? We've seen them do it time and time again before. I would say to the Home Secretary, this is a genuine offer in the national interest. We will not play the same game they did, voting things down for no reason, but she must be clear with the House on these questions. How many people will be able to take advantage of the new work and study visa route? And what will the level of the cap be? Will it be 10,000 people? Will it be 100,000 people? The government has separately confirmed they will allow Gazan students to bring dependents. We oppose this, but can she clarify how the government will ensure that people brought to the UK from a territory under Hamas control are not a risk to our security? If she finds that the Human Rights Act and ECHR prevent her from enacting these proposals, will she use primary legislation to resolve this? Has Lord Hermer agreed? By her own admission 3 weeks ago, the Home Office is not yet fit for purpose, so why then are we creating the new legal routes for the Home Office to run? And will she take me up on this serious, genuine offer to meet and discuss how we can work together to resolve this asylum crisis, yes or no? I urge her to put party politics aside, meet with me and my shadow Home Secretary. Let's find a way to work together.
Order. I was very generous with time then. Home Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her response to the statement. I see that the Shadow Home Secretary has been subbed out after his performance at Home Office orals. But whether it's the Shadow Home Secretary or the Leader of the Opposition herself, I'm very happy to take on the Conservative Party any day of the week. And let me start by saying we will not be taking any lessons from those opposite on how to run an effective migration system or indeed an asylum system, because I'm afraid to say to the Leader of the Opposition, she knows that her party in government gave up on governing altogether. They gave up on making asylum decisions, creating the huge backlog that it was left to this government to start to deal with. And in our first 18 months in office, removals are up 23% compared to their last 18 months in office. So I will take no lessons from anyone opposite on anything to do with our asylum system, because they simply gave up and went for an expensive gimmick that cost 700 million quid, returned 4 volunteers and was doomed to failure from the start. I will also say, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition had rather a lot to say about the European Convention on Human Rights. I don't recall the members opposite ever bringing forward any legislation to deal with the application of Article 8, the qualified right to a private life, in this House. There was never a bill that sought to clarify the way that Article 8 should apply in our domestic legislation or indeed in our immigration rules. So I'm not going to take any lessons from the people that just never bothered to do that in the first place. It is this government that is rolling up our sleeves, dealing with the detailed, substantive issues that we face and thinking of proper, workable solutions to those matters. And I just say on Article 3, I think the position on Article 3 has changed across Europe. I was over at the Council of Europe in my previous role as Lord Chancellor just before the summer recess earlier on this year, and I was struck by the sheer range of other European partners who want to have this conversation. It is important, I think, that the British government leans into that conversation and seeks to work in collaboration with our European partners. The one thing that will not work is simply saying we're going to come out of the European Convention altogether. That is not and will never be the policy of this government, because we believe reform can be pursued, but that this is an important convention, not least because it actually underpins some of our own returns agreements, including the one with France. And so she talks about how many years it would take for us to think about reform of the convention, but it would also take just as many years, as she well knows, to start renegotiating lots of international agreements which would be affected by us coming out of the convention. So I'm afraid her solution, once again, will not work. And if she wanted to work together in the national interest, and look, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm always up for working in the national interest, because nothing actually matters more to me than holding our own country together and uniting our country. But they could have started by voting for the Borders Bill, which is currently going through the House and which they have voted against at every opportunity. So forgive me if I don't take this newfound conversion to working together in the national interest with much seriousness, because their own track record suggests it should not be taken seriously. And not be taken seriously, Madam Deputy Speaker, sums up the position.
Dude, Shabana's going to be the next Prime Minister, and it's going to be fucking awesome.
Of the Conservative Party. These are the people that left this government an abject mess to clear up. They gave up on governing, they gave up on running an effective asylum system, and now they turn up without so much as an apology to the British public, thinking that they've got anything to say that anyone wants to hear.
Before I call the first backbench contribution, can I remind members that in order to expect to be called in a statement, they should have been here from the start of the Home Secretary's statement. There may be members bobbing quite unnecessarily. Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the reality is we need an asylum and immigration system based on fairness and consistency. My constituency of Vauxhall and Campbell Green is a testament to this. It's a place that's been made richer because of the people who've come here from all over the world. Some of them have fled persecution and have made a home over many years. I meet these people every week in the community and including in schools, where I see those children excited about their future. When this government came into office last year, they were right to say that their priority in this area is to tackle the huge backlog of unprocessed asylum claims left by their predecessor. Clearing that backlog is a big task, Madam Deputy Speaker, but it is right that we identify who has a right to be here. But by introducing more assessments of those who've been here for many years, making new judgments on safety of a country will take considerable resources. So is the Home Secretary confident that these changes will not have an unintentional consequence and actually make it harder to achieve her goal?
I thank my honourable friend for her question. Let me assure her there will be both the administrative system and the resources needed to underpin the asylum changes that we are making. It is already the case that at the end of the 5-year leave to remain period, there is meant to be an assessment as to whether the country of origin remains a safe country or not. What has ended up happening, though, in practice is that has become an almost effectively an automatic pathway to permanent settlement. That is the thing that we are changing. But what I would ask her to do is look carefully at our protection work and study route, because we will be encouraging those who have sought asylum here, being granted refugee status, to go into work or to study that supports their integration, but it also means that they are making a contribution which actually will retain public support for the system overall.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is right that the government is looking for ways to bring order to the asylum system. It was left in total disarray by the Conservatives. Sadly, the government has been too slow to act. Britain has a long and proud history of responding with compassion to people fleeing unimaginable horrors. That should continue in a way that is fair and sustainable. So we welcome some of what the Home Secretary has said on that score. But what is not helpful is the Home Secretary claiming that the country is being torn apart by immigration. Acknowledging the challenges facing our nation is one thing, but stoking division by using immoderate language is quite another.
It's just true. The immigration issue is the most divisive thing in the country right now. What, you can't just point out the fact that this issue is tearing the country apart, that people are literally like, that we've had riots over it. There was like thousands of people marching through London over it. Like, fuck you. Fuck you. Just like fucking tone policing.
The
it's
challenges
so gay.
facing our nation is one thing, but stoking division by using immoderate language is quite another. I will, however, welcome news about safe and legal routes. This is something the Liberal Democrats have called for some time, since they were scrapped by the Conservatives, leading to more small boat crossings. But we do have some concerns about the far-reaching detail behind these proposals, which seems to be missing. The Home Secretary is revoking the legal duty to provide asylum seekers with accommodation and says asylum seekers should support themselves and contribute to our society. But she is still banning them from working so they can support themselves, contributing to our society. That makes no sense at all. She relies a lot on Denmark as an example. Denmark lets asylum seekers work after 6 months. So will she. And can she guarantee that the burden to house asylum seekers won't fall on already struggling local councils? And can she guarantee that we won't see a whole-scale transfer of asylum seekers from hotels to the streets? And if the Minister for Border Security and Asylum announced to the media asylum seekers could have jewellery confiscated, is the Home Secretary doing this to raise money or to deter people? And either way, does she acknowledge that many British people will see it as unnecessary and cruel? State-sponsored robbery will certainly not fix a system that costs taxpayers £6 million every day in hotel bills. If the government plans to keep its promise to end hotel use, it must also process the claims of the 90,000 backlog of asylum seekers. Something the Liberal Democrats have a plan to do within 6 months using Nightingale-style processing centres. Does the Home Secretary seriously believe that an overstretched Home Office, which has yet to clear the existing backlog, can also undertake reviews of every refugee's status every 2.5 years? The UK must continue to lead international efforts to manage large migratory flows, and because the flow of people comes from Europe, she will need to work with the EU on a solution. The Oxford Migration Observatory has identified a clear Brexit effect. That means people refused asylum in the EU now make a second attempt here, a consequence of the Brexit delivered by the Conservatives and the honourable member for Clacton 2. The Minister refused to answer earlier whether Brexit has harmed our immigration and asylum system. So I'll ask the Home Secretary now, does she think that Brexit has made it easier or more difficult for this country to control its borders and asylum system? And does she think reductions in overseas development spending will reduce or increase migratory flows? We have already made it very clear that we think leaving the ECHR will make no difference to securing our borders and will tear hard-won rights away from British people. It's encouraging that the Home Secretary has said that is not part of the government's plan. Finally, we urge the government to tread carefully, to act with fairness, to act with efficiency, and to act with compassion for local communities in the UK who want this resolved, but also for asylum seekers too.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have to say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called a fucking packy and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue of asylum has become in our country. And I do say to him, I wish it were possible to say that there isn't a problem here, that there's nothing to see and that it is all, in fact, just extremist right-wing talking points. But this system is broken.
I miss it.
Divisive migration. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have to say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called a fucking packy and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That is a good response to the fucking tone policing, though. Holy fuck. Holy shit, man. That's so crazy.
Say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, Unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called a fucking packy and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue of asylum has become in our country. And I do say to him, I wish it were possible to say that there isn't a problem here, that there's nothing to see, and that it is all, in fact, just extremist right-wing talking points. But this system is broken, and it is incumbent on all members of Parliament to acknowledge how badly broken the system is and to make it a moral mission to fix this system so that it stops creating the division that we all see. And I do say to him, I do not think it is acceptable or appropriate for people in this place to not acknowledge the real experience of those who sit outside of this House. We are supposed to be in here to reflect that experience in this House, and I hope that he will approach the debates that we will no doubt have on all of these measures in that spirit. He also accused this government of being too slow to act. I do have to say to him, removals of those who have no right to be in our country are up by 23% in the first...
I was kind of dismissive of Shabana. I mean, she seems competent, but I just didn't think she would have any, like, sort of public pull, because it just feels like there is such a, like, you know, being a brown woman is just, like, insane disadvantage. People are just gonna fucking hate her. But she's really good. She is really good. So I've always said she got a shot at leadership. Because she's a really good speaker.
18 months of this Labour government compared to the last 18 months of that former Tory government. That is a government that is getting on with the job. We have made 11,000 enforcement raids, 8,000 arrests, and over 1,000 people with no right to be in this country as a result of those raids have been removed from this country. This is a government that has been getting on with the job, and this is just the next phase of our work as we deal with the broken migration system that we inherited from those opposite. He said that he thought that whilst people who are waiting on their claim should be given the right to work, I think he knows that would be a huge pull factor and increase the number of channel crossings rather than decrease them. That would be our experience in this country. That is why we are not pursuing that policy. But what we have said is for those who are granted refugee status in this country and who can and want to, they will be able to switch into the protection work and study route so they can start contributing to society. That will help them to integrate, and it will help the communities that they are living in as well. He knows full well that it is not the policy of this government to confiscate jewellery from those who are accessing asylum accommodation. What I would say to him, though, is asylum accommodation is provided to asylum seekers by British taxpayers, and it is right that if people have high-value assets, that they contribute to the cost of that asylum accommodation. I gave in my speech the example of a man who was in supported asylum accommodation paid for by his taxpayers and by mine, who was receiving £800 a month from his family and who had enough money to acquire himself an Audi. I think it is right that the British state should be able to say to such a...
No, Keir's not here. Keir's not here. People cry. People say never hear Keir. They actually say that about him because he does spend a lot of time abroad. But I mean, I think for stuff like this, it's good for him not to be there because you do want Shabana to be the focus. Like, she's Home Secretary. This is her policy. If you have the Prime Minister there, she's going to be slightly overshadowed.
An individual contribute. We're not saying that we would take everything away and leave that individual destitute, but I think contribution is a fair principle here. And I would be very disappointed to discover that the Liberal Democrats do not support contribution when people can afford to do so to the cost of their asylum accommodation. And Madam Deputy Speaker, he left his remarks on Brexit. I don't have any more to say about that. I'm living in the world as it is today. If he has things to say, I'm sure the House will continue to hear about them.
The Home Secretary should know that language that is not acceptable in this House does not become acceptable if it is attributed to others. She might like to apologise for the language used.
How is she going to handle this? How is she going to handle this? How is this played, dude?
I apologise, Madam Deputy Speaker. I did not mean any discourtesy. I was merely reflecting the truth of words that are used to me.
And I think we all appreciate that. But please, can I urge members to keep their language acceptable in the House? Graham Stringer.
The thing is, as well, this would have gone out on midday, like, TV, dude. This would have gone out midday TV, no alteration. national TV in like the fucking middle of the afternoon, and she's just dropping, you know, fucking. That's crazy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I start by saying I fully support the Home Secretary in a statement today. It is a fundamental duty of government to protect our borders and to know who is coming into this country, which we have not known for some time. She has set herself a difficult task, but will she agree to publish targets for all the areas she has outlined in her statement today, particularly a reduction in the number of undocumented and illegal entrants to the country, so that we can check whether it is working, and she may need to alter some of the policies if it is not working.
Thank my honourable friend for his question. What we won't do is set arbitrary targets or caps. We have learnt the lessons of previous governments, and I think that setting a number in that way actually costs public confidence. The better thing to do is to actually get on with delivering these reforms, passing the necessary legislation in this House, delivering them out there in the country, and then assessing them as they go. I have no doubt that there will be much debate and scrutiny in this place and in others about the success of these reforms, and I look forward to answering those questions over the coming months and years, no doubt.
Chair of the Home Affairs Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
Madam Deputy Speaker. My committee, I'm sure, will want to look closely at the very significant number of announcements that the Home Secretary has made today. But she has referred on a number of occasions to asylum seekers contributing to the support that they're given. And I wonder whether she has made any consideration of setting up a deferred payment scheme much akin to the student loan scheme, so that people, when they are granted asylum and are in work, can start to pay back for the generosity they've received.
I thank the Chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, and I do very much look forward to my first appearance before her committee, which I hope we can arrange very soon, and I'm sure we will be discussing in detail all of these proposals as well as other matters relating to the Home Office. Let me say on that specific point around further contribution, it is something that we are currently exploring. It's not part of the package of measures today, but I'll happily update the House in due course.
Joe White.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Home Secretary for her statement? Would the Home Secretary agree with me that enforcing the immigration rules, including removals, is in the public interest? Could the Home Secretary provide greater detail on the action the government will take to balance public interest against individual rights?
Okay, so we're literally just this must be a Labour plant question. This is like whip planted question here. This is like get up and ask but how they're going to balance it with individual rights, and say thank you for the amazing policy.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. We will bring forward legislation in the next session on the specific ways in which we will deal with the application of Article 8 to immigration cases, and also how we will update our immigration rules as well. I'm happy to discuss with her how that legislation will be developed over the coming weeks, but the intention is to do exactly as I said in my statement, in particular to define what is a family, to define how the public interest test is used so that it is only used in the most exceptional of circumstances, and to tighten the who and the where of how Article 8 claims can be made. Taken together, we believe that will ensure that we are able to ensure that the application of Article 8 is exactly as it was intended to be when the European Convention on Human Rights was first agreed to.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
On these benches, we generally wish her well, because otherwise the country, in her own words, will start falling apart. So it's a good effort, 7 out of 10. She clearly has strong conservative instincts. But does she fear that such is the misery in many of these countries that they're not really worried about how long they have to wait for their asylum claim to be processed? And does she fear that unless we do arrest and detain and deport people very quickly, then this problem will just go on and on and on? So she mentioned return hubs. Could you say a bit more about that? And could she have an open mind
this
about...
is her dragon. Where's the backbencher that she owns?
There is nothing progressive about ducking asylum reform. And
I'm pretty sure there was like a clip of there's meant to be some other good clips, but I don't want to sit there and watch the full 2 hours for it. What's this?
Something broken, to fix it and to make sure that the fact that it's broken is not fueling division in our country. And let me also say to her, it is Green Party politicians who are absolute hypocrites because they talk great language in here and then oppose asylum accommodation in their own constituencies.
Dude, holy fuck. Let's wait, we've got to see that. We've got to see that. Dude, I can't. Oh my god. Bro, come on. Where are the highlights? Did Politics Joe have a highlights yet? No, they don't. Fuck. Dude, fuck. Let's just skim through from it. Let's just skim through.
Going in relation to return hubs, I very much hope we can update the House in due course.
Sarah Owen. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope that we could all agree that a strong immigration system doesn't have to be a cruel one. Yeah. When the Tories painted over murals for refugee children, the numbers of small boat crossings still went up. When they threatened deportations to Rwanda, guess what? The crossings still went up. So what evidence does the Secretary of State have that taking personal belongings, such as jewellery from refugees and selling it off, actually works as a deterrent?
Well, I don't think that's about the deterrent. I don't think she was proposing that as a deterrent. She's saying that's to fund their accommodation so the taxpayer isn't footing the bill.
Isn't a focus on the new plans outlined on the safe and legal routes a much better use of all of our time?
I say to my honourable friend, we are not taking jewellery at the border. I can't say it any more clearly than that. She will know that the example I have used in my speech, and the sort of case we're going after, is those who have assets, those who have access to money and who can afford quite expensive cars, who should make a contribution to the cost of what is currently free asylum support. These two things are not the same, and I would urge her not to conflate the two. We will not and never will seize people's jewellery at the border. We're not going after their sentimental items like wedding rings and so on. We are talking about those who have high value assets, who receive at the moment, having claimed asylum in this country, so before they've been granted refugee status.
Tommy Robinson and Nigel are calling today a W for them. See, I feel like that's a misplay. Like, politically, that might be policy-wise true, but that's like a misplay politically. They have to be always, like, their support and popularity relies on them being to the right and implying the problem is way worse than anyone's telling you it is. If they say, oh, today's W, Shabana's doing what we would do, they sound like a reform supporter, like I've seen some of them saying. Does that not tell reform supporters, hey, Labour's taking you seriously, Labour's actually trying to fix the problem?
They've claimed asylum, they receive free accommodation on the state. If they have assets, they should contribute to the cost of that accommodation, just as I explained in the example I used in my speech. That is the sort.
Overton windows are shattered, but it's not though, because copying Scandinavian countries is like a very popular thing. You know, we do see Scandinavian countries quite competent. If the Danish have had a good success with their immigration policy, people aren't going to be particularly opposed to that. The idea this is so far outside the Overton window to say, oh, we need to reform our immigration policy to make it more in line with the rest of Europe, and we're going to copy a Scandinavian country to do it. That's like that is so tepid.
Sort of case we are talking about, and I do hope that she will not perpetuate what is being said about jewellery, because I have ruled that out clearly in this House today.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Home Secretary for her statement? Labour's change, of course, is most welcome, and she's outlined.
Literally don't care about retarded right-wingers chipping on this. I just want to hear backbench Labour MPs and shit.
about safe and legal routes. She'll know that cities like Cambridge have a long tradition going back to the kinder transport to welcoming people from Syria and Ukraine. And I very much hope she'll work closely with authorities like Cambridge City Council to work on measures that can make these routes work.
I thank my honourable friend. We absolutely will work with local partners, councils, philanthropists, other charitable organisations as we develop these safe and legal routes. And as I said in my speech earlier, they will take 3 primary forms: community sponsorship, because we believe that is the best model for achieving integration of refugees into our communities, a route for talented students and for skilled workers as well. We want to play our full part as a country in providing sanctuary to those truly in need. We need to move to a better system. Safe and legal routes will be the way in the future to do it.
Marie Goldman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure we can all agree across this
I hope
House.
I haven't missed any of the good stuff. I want to see the Greens bit. I want to see Zara Sultana. I don't think
One of the key aspects of dealing with the asylum system is dealing with the crisis and the backlog, which is absolutely enormous. And the Home Secretary said in her speech that they are looking at a number of large military sites as an alternative to the asylum hotels. One of those large military sites is already in use is RAF Wethersfield in Essex. I understand from Essex Police that Braintree District Council has been given a sum of funding to the tune of about £2 million to help with community cohesion, dealing with the fact that they have that facility nearby. However, buses are taking asylum seekers from Wethersfield to places like Colchester and to my constituency of Chelmsford several times a day, and that is placing extra strain on Essex Police in those areas, yet they are unable to access those funds. Will the Home Secretary commit to providing extra funds to Essex Police in those areas to help them police them?
I think that was 2 questions. One on the backlog, which I recognise the backlog of appeals is far too high. It is why we're going to create a new independent appeal system so that we can run through these cases more quickly whilst fulfilling our obligations to an independent process and providing early legal advice as well.
This is that Lieutenant Star retard.
On the specific points in relation to Wethersfield and pressures on councils, we do, of course, work closely with local councils and do provide funding to assist with community cohesion and other issues. And I will look carefully at the example that she has raised if she writes to me.
Derek Twigg.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I say to the Home Secretary that her statement is most welcome. It's certainly a step in the right direction, and certainly the proposals that she set out today are a significant step in the right direction. It's also the case, I think, as well, that the comments she made about the damage to the social fabric of this country are very, very important. But can I ask her a specific question? And that is about asylum seekers who committed crimes and actually are deported, but then allowed to again put a second application in to come back to this country. Will she be looking at law to see how that can be addressed?
What I would say to him on those who are convicted of crimes, the combination of the sentencing bill changes and what I have said today should actually lead to earlier deportation of foreign national offenders.
I'll be 2 seconds, and then we're going to start skimming through this again because I want to just get to the good bits. I don't want to watch the whole fucking thing.
It is, of course, absolutely important that those individuals face the full force of the law, but we have made a policy decision as a government that for the vast majority of foreign national offenders, the appropriate thing to do is to move to immediate deportation wherever possible.
Sakib Bhatti.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary said that she was exploring the possibility of return hubs with negotiations ongoing. Can she tell the House which country she's negotiating with and how much is it going to cost?
No, because he would not expect me, I think, to comment on live negotiations with other countries. But those negotiations are ongoing, and I hope we have announcements to make soon.
Catherine West.
Deputy Speaker, the Hornsey and Friar Barnet constituency has a long tradition of being boroughs of sanctuary, and just today I had an excellent briefing from the Jewish Voice for Refugees, Hayas J-Corps. Will she agree with me that currently there is a real problem with the cliff edge for failed asylum seekers who end up street homeless or rough sleeping, particularly in my constituency around the Finsbury Park area? And will she redouble her efforts to understand the connections between homelessness and the asylum process so that all people can have shelter in the current period as we go into the winter?
I thank my honourable friend. I do understand the point that she is making. I mean, I think the reality is that there are a lot of failed asylum seekers within the asylum accommodation system, and I'm sure she would accept and agree that where somebody has a failed claim and no right to be in this country, the best thing to do is to voluntarily leave the country, and we do already provide packages to help people make that decision. I, of course, don't want to see people homeless in this country, but I know she can't possibly think that the answer to that is to essentially have there be no consequence to having a failed asylum claim in the first place. We do need to run a system where the rules are enforced, as uncomfortable as that might occasionally be, but of course recognising that we don't want people in destitution. That is why we do make financial packages available for people to voluntarily remove the country, and that will always be the case.
Pete Wishart.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in their manifesto, Labour promised to defend migrants' rights and build an immigration system based on compassion and dignity. Instead, what we have is a policy that's welcomed by Reform UK and that's even found favour with Tommy Robinson, from throwing refugees into destitution to denying any meaningful route to citizenship to forcible evictions. Where exactly is the compassion and dignity in that?
Yeah.
Well, I can assure him that given that Tommy Robinson doesn't even think I'm actually English, he will certainly not be supporting anything I've got to say. So let's just leave that there, I think, Madam Deputy Speaker. We don't need to hear any more about what vile racists have to say about anything whatsoever. And let me also say to him, I guess it's not a surprise to me to find a Scottish National Party Member of Parliament defending a broken status quo. That's what they do in Scotland with the Scottish Government under the SNP every day, and that's what he's doing now. I hope he can agree that good reform...
He's so mad. I'm not surprised you're defending a broken system, because isn't that your job? Isn't that your job as an SNP? That's so based.
I guess it's not a surprise to me to find a Scottish National Party Member of Parliament defending a broken status quo. That's what they do in Scotland with the Scottish Government under the SNP every day, and that's what he's doing now. I hope he can agree that good reform, much needed reform to a broken system, is the best way to retain public support for having an asylum system at all.
Deputy Speaker.
My
right honourable friend is absolutely right to seek to bring order to the chaos at our borders, chaos instituted by the Tories, which undermines trust in our state and imposes such costs on communities. She is also right to address the pull factors which lure migrants to their death in our channel of claims of cushy lives in five-star hotels. And she is right to assist that our proposals must reflect British values and work in practice.
It's racist to say.
So on that, could she say a little bit more about how reviewing refugee status every 2 years will work in practice, particularly with regard to the Home Office capacity and also with regard to integration?
I thank my honourable friend for her comments as well as her question. What we are doing in relation to the refugee status is moving from a situation where it's effectively permanent and the most attractive of all routes into the country to a more temporary...
Okay, yeah, we've heard that like 60 times. What's this?
A fairer asylum system in which...
I'm not interested in models that start separating out different nations from one another. Once somebody has got status in our country, they are on a path to becoming one of us if they are working and contributing.
Gary McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I agree with the need for a fairer asylum system in which the public can have confidence. But all that she proposes today is predicated on there being decent legal advice available for people. And I know from 20 years as an MP that is simply not the case. Despite the best efforts of the advice sector in Bristol, which is proud to be a city of sanctuary, there's just a real dearth of decent immigration lawyers. And I see too many constituents that fall into the hands of dodgy lawyers who will help them falsify and fabricate claims. What is she going to do to ensure that decent legal advice is there?
Well, look, I agree with her in that my own constituency experience as a Member of Parliament is many people have turned up at my advice surgery believing that there are things that I can do as a constituency MP to assist them in their migration claim, which I cannot do, and they've been completely misled and robbed, frankly, by unscrupulous individuals. In the new appeal system that we are going to set up, early legal advice will be available from the start. We believe in access to justice. People need to have the right legal advice, but doing it early and right at the start of claims means that we can run a system where you can have one claim and one appeal rather than the absolute merry-go-round and whack-a-mole of claims that we see today.
Danny Kruger.
Deputy Speaker, I welcome the rhetoric
fucking subhuman Danny Kruger. God,
that the Home Secretary has announced. In fact, I recognise the rhetoric of the Home Secretary today. We have our plan for restoring justice. She has announced a plan to restore order and control. But before she puts in her application to join Reform UK, and I very much welcome her doing so, can I just draw out the difference? Can I draw out the difference between our parties? Unlike the government, Madam Deputy Speaker, we don't propose to give illegal immigrants the right to stay here for 2.5 years after arriving. We don't propose to give them the right to study and work here. We don't propose to allow them to bring their families here. And crucially, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're not going to contort our law to comply with, or to fit into the European Convention on Human Rights. The derogations that she announces will not work to stop the lawfare, just as the derogations announced in the Rwanda bill wouldn't have stopped the lawfare, which is why I opposed that bill as well. So she talks about, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm great.
I don't think there was a question in there, Madam Deputy Speaker. As for his invitation to join his party, of whom there appear to be hardly any over there, let me tell him, over my dead body.
Let's go. Dude, Shabana's awesome. She's so good.
Thank you very much indeed. I want to commend the Home Secretary for getting the balance absolutely right. And I think the announcement that she has made today will be widely welcomed across our diverse community in Birmingham, because we know that our generosity of spirit is upheld by our rule of law, and the kindness that we show is protected by the justice that we share. So will she confirm that while we will always give sanctuary to those who need our protection, what she's advancing today is in effect a form of earned citizenship, and only those who step up to the full responsibilities of citizenship will enjoy the full rights of citizenship of this country?
Well, my honourable friend makes a very powerful point. We are constituency neighbours, and both of us have done many community meetings over the years where these issues have been discussed, not just by those who are white, but those who are ethnic minority Britons as well. Because the thing that unites all Britons, regardless of their background, is a desire for fairness and for a good system that people can have confidence in. And he's absolutely right. The concept of earned citizenship.
Okay.
Hotels since coming to power, but can the Home Secretary...
Where's the rest of the good stuff? Come on.
To do, despite...
This must be it, right? Come on.
And introduce the safe and legal routes that are the viable alternative, the right alternative, and persuade people not to get on a dangerous boat in the north of France instead.
Josh Babarinde.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Home Secretary has spoken a lot about contribution, but one of the most powerful forms of contribution to our country is getting a job and paying taxes, something that the Home Secretary will not allow people seeking asylum to do, despite the fact that in Denmark they can do that. She speaks about pull factors being an aversion to this, but a study by the University of Warwick, looking at 30 different studies of this, found that there was no long-term correlation between labour market access and destination choice. So will she review her decision not to offer people seeking asylum the right to work so that they can pay their own way in our country?
I think, look, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is what I said in response to a question from his side earlier today. It would be a pull factor because we already know that the ability to work in this country illegally is already a pull factor, and that is why we are clamping down on illegal working. It's why we've seen 11,000 raids, 8,000 arrests, and 1,000 people with no right to be in this.
Carla Denya, I think you're talking about. Sol Skibbity, she was the previous leader of the Greens. I actually prefer her to Zach Polanski. She's actually you know, she is like a fucking, like, what would you say? Like, she like comes off like a mad, like, art school tree hugger, you know? I think she's like a fucking Bristol MP or something. But, yeah, she's okay. She's okay. Generally. But yeah, I have seen the clip of her spazzing out. Oh shit, wait, we're gonna see her actually talking about
this country, removed from this country, so it would be a pull factor. And what I would say to him also is, I have the misfortune of having to look through the TikTok accounts and the various other ways in which the organised immigration criminals actually advertise their packages for people to get on a boat in the Channel in the north of France. It's in all of those marketing materials as well, and we know from the intelligence that we gather as well, that is one of the pull factors. It's why we have to deal with it.
Gurinder Singh Josan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for her statement, which I fully support. My constituency, like that of the Home Secretary, is incredibly diverse, with people originating in countries of
into the sit underneath.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it isn't people seeking sanctuary that are tearing our country apart. It's toxic, racist narratives and the scapegoating of migrants and asylum seekers for what is nothing to do with them. The chronic housing crisis, the running down of public services are not caused by migrants. They are caused by political decisions and by the grotesque inequality in this country. Does the Secretary of State
I mean, it's true that, yes, public service is not failing because of immigration. Yes, that's true. The points there are true. Those problems are not caused by immigration. But there are problems caused by immigration. And immigration is a very visible problem. It's causing a lot of political issues right now. So we need to have a rational but firm solution presented to it to make sure the fucking populace don't go totally insane.
Understand that attempting to out-reform reform is actually just boosting this baseless far-right narrative and will only deepen divisions when we urgently need leadership and hope instead.
Let me tell her, I couldn't care less what any other political party has to say about these matters. I don't care what other politicians are saying on the television. I don't care what other activists are saying either. I care about the fact that I have an important job to do, and I can see that there is a problem here that needs to be fixed. If it was possible to pretend there wasn't a problem because there wasn't one, I wouldn't be saying there is one. There is a genuine problem in this asylum system, and we need someone to sort it out, not to pretend it doesn't exist, which I'm afraid is one of the things that fuels the division in the first place. My own constituents, since I have been Home Secretary, have been telling me directly of abuses in the visa system that they can see with the evidence of their own eyes long before any officials in Whitehall have ever clocked onto those things. It is a moral responsibility when you see something broken to fix it and to make sure that the fact that it's broken is not fueling division in our country. And let me also say to her...
So here we go. She's about to go fucking crazy.
Make sure that the fact that it's broken is not fueling division in our country. And let me also say to her, it is Green Party politicians who are absolute hypocrites because they talk great language in here and then oppose asylum accommodation in their own constituencies.
They jump up and just fucking wave at a hand
in
around.
Their own constituencies.
Oh my god, it's so fucking good.
Politicians who are absolute hypocrites because they talk great language in here and then oppose asylum accommodation in their own constituencies.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I first thank the Home Secretary for her statement? As a member of Bradford West, my constituency, I'm really proud of Bradford being a city of sanctuary.
Okay.
Right to work checks.
Who else do we get?
Come from Afghanistan.
Corbyn.
Nowhere in the Home Secretary's statement does she put this into any kind of global context about the millions of people that have become refugees or homeless all around the world, and that more than 2/3 of those are housed by the southern countries, the poorest countries in the world, with the least resources possible to do it. And what she's doing instead is putting in draconian measures against refugees trying to come to this country, failing to recognise that more than 6,000, for example, of those that...
What is it? Please, Jezza, tell us. What's the draconian part of this policy? Please tell us.
Across the Channel this year come from Afghanistan, a war-torn country that we helped to make into a war-torn country. And she instead is trying to appease the most ghastly right-wing racist forces all across Europe in undermining and walking away from the European Convention on Human Rights, a convention created by the post-war Labour government. Does she not recognise history is going to be a harsh judge on this government for undermining the whole global humanitarian principles behind the ECHR and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
Undermining it how? By slightly reinterpreting 2 clauses of it so we can actually have effective deportations? Huh? Slightly altering the reading of 2 clauses is walking away from it. Bro, trust me, there's much worse coming down the pipeline if you don't like that.
Home Secretary.
Well, not for the first time, I'm a little mystified as to what the honourable gentleman is talking about. He starts with the global context. I guess my start point is different to his because I start with our domestic context first. He ought to know that...
Yo, Shabana's Britain first? Shabana's Britain first?
In this country, there have already been bespoke schemes for the resettlement of people from Afghanistan. So perhaps he could, read up on those schemes. He should also have heard from what I said in my statement that we remain absolutely committed to offering sanctuary to those who are fleeing conflict abroad. We think that the best way to do that is not to encourage people to get on a boat in the Channel by paying thousands and thousands of pounds to people smugglers, who, by the way, it's not just smuggling that's a vile crime. Those individuals are involved in all sorts of other disgusting organised crime. They should not be in receipt of money from vulnerable people. I want to disincentivise people making that choice, and I want to incentivise people coming on safe and legal routes instead. And if he would actually read the asylum policy statement, he would know it's the policy position of this government to provide more safe and legal routes. Once he's done more reading, I'll be happy to answer more of his questions.
They look at him. Look at him.
If he's done more reading, I'll be happy to answer more of his questions.
Dude, Shabana is so fucking good. She's actually pissing everyone off. It's so good, man. Holy fuck.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I do remember when the Prime Minister pledged an immigration system based upon compassion and dignity. Yet now, and it needs to be said, we've got an immigration minister tweeting deport, deport, deport. And now this policy announcement, which I'm afraid scrapes the bottom of the barrel.
Not being allowed to work when almost every other country allows refugees to work is pretty draconian. That's the current situation, right? Is they're not allowed to work. Labour are bringing in a refugee-only work and study visa for asylum seekers. So it's like an improvement. Like, say these measures, Labour's measures are draconian when it's an improvement in that regard on the existing policy. Is like, that seems retarded.
If we're being frank, isn't this just a desperate attempt to triangulate with reform? And like some of the other terrible policy errors that have been made in recent months.
Yeah, in Denmark you have to wait 6 months, but you can work. That's the difference.
Isn't it not only morally wrong, but another policy which is set to push away Labour voters? Why not recognise that now than in a few months and make a U-turn?
Home Secretary.
I would really caution my honourable friend not to defend a broken status quo. He should also know that it is foreign national offenders that are deported from this country, and I would hope he could agree that foreign national offenders should be deported from this country. We should not be keeping convicted criminals in our nation a day longer than is absolutely necessary. And I just say to him, the thing that's morally wrong is knowing that you have a broken system and then pretending either that it's not broken or defending a broken status quo. I will never tolerate that. And I have to say to him, as I've said to other members opposite today as well, I do not care for what other parties are saying on these matters or what other politicians have to say either. I have thought first and foremost of my moral responsibility to the people of this country as I fulfil my duty as Home Secretary. I have a series of reforms here that are underpinned by the values of the Labour Party and the values of the British people. They are fairness and they are contribution. I hope he will reflect on that as he reads up on the detail of these reforms.
Ben Oxojecti.
Mr. Speaker, in February, during the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, I raised the issue of the generous financial and accommodation package advertised on the government's own website, Asylum Support What You'll Get, which outlines the provision of an Aspen card with £49.18 of cash loaded onto it each week, on top of free accommodation, even if you've been refused asylum. Cards that are able to be used for gambling and have been over...
Wow, £50 a week. Whoa, that's... Whoa. They're really living it up.
6,000 times, according to an FOI. In May, I raised it again when I asked the previous Home Secretary what she planned to do to address the pull factor.
I was myself on £50 a week.
Free cash and free home. So can this Home Secretary now commit to my previous calls that these pull factors must be mitigated to be a deterrent? And will those on Section 4 or Section 95 support have the benefit withdrawn under these measures?
Home Secretary.
Well, I would urge him to look at the detail of the asylum policy statement, the whole point of which is to deal with the pull factors that we know are drawing people to get on a dangerous boat and cross the channel illegally. The upshot of the reforms is to deal with those pull factors, and you will know that within the asylum policy statement we have said that it is a relatively small number, it's just under 10%, but just under 10% of those in asylum accommodation already do have the right to work, and in future we will expect them, where they have the right to work, to work.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary is arguing that what will heal this divided nation is to get somebody who we have agreed is a refugee with a well-founded fear of persecution to feel a permanent sense
The gambling shit's so good. Yeah, but they're letting them gamble with that money. We're actually talking hundreds of thousands of millionaire refugees.
Of limbo, because they will never be able to plan for the long term for them or their family, because their status will always
dude? Where is it? Where is it?
Be uncertain, because they could still face deportation. Exactly. Her consultation document, which I have read, talks about using enforced return for families. Last year alone, 10,000 children, many of whom are with their families, were granted refugee status in this country.
Okay, I'm going to skip through a bit more.
Media this weekend has consequences. Media this
future will be the route and to push people towards this country.
This woman, the Green, I think she was a Green, right?
Not been safely.
Stoking fear and division through the kind of performative cruelty trailed over the media this weekend has consequences. We saw that in Caerphilly last month, where Reform UK spread information. Ukrainians spoke of intimidation. So when she speaks of unity, surely the lesson from Caerphilly is that imitating reform doesn't create unity, doesn't win trust, but standing firm on values does.
Here, here.
I'm sorry, that's just unserious from the Honourable Lady. I'm sorry to find that the Reform Party is living rent-free in so many people's heads. I can assure...
Future PM, future PM. Future PM. Future PM.
Does.
Here, here.
I'm sorry, that's just unserious from the Honourable Lady. I'm sorry to find that the Reform Party is living rent-free in so many people's heads. I can assure you it's living nowhere near mine. These policy proposals are designed to fix what we all know to be true, which is we have a broken system. It is driving division across our country. I see that in my own constituency. I hope she's not suggesting that the evidence of my own eyes and my own experience in my own constituency, where over 70% of those those people are not white, and most of them have a migration story just like my own. These are matters of great interest across our country, across every type of community in our country, and it is incumbent on any government that wants to make sure that we can run a decent system and not fuel division in our country to pursue the sorts of reforms that we are talking about today, underpinned by what I would have hoped were values that her party could have signed up to as well, and that is to say fairness and contribution.
Lauren Sullivan.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank and support the Home...
They've adjusted the rules on gig economy stuff. Yeah, any party that wins power is going to do that. That's like, to call that draconian, it's like, what are we actually talking about here? Like, how far are they going? I don't know how far you'd have to go for me to call that draconian, especially when it's like an inevitability of policy. Like, this is something that this is like a talking point that loads of reform supporters and shit use all the time, is about Deliveroo drivers and fucking all these like altercations and shit like that, and having like, you know, some white woman on the fucking app, and then it shows up and it's some, you know, huge fucking Muslim bloke. Like, oh my god, what if a woman answered the door and it was just, you know. So any party that wins is going to end up doing something about this. I don't what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Just let it keep happening and people just keep getting madder.
Home Secretary for her statement today. This is long overdue reform of the system, such as reforming safe and legal routes, cracking down on illegal working, and also against those abusing the asylum seeking and immigration system, yet maintains support for those that need our support, such as those fleeing war in Ukraine.
Yeah, we don't care here.
Dr. Andrew Mirison.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was a genuinely good statement, as far as it went, from which we learnt that countries could be determined to be safe at some point in the future and refugees from them returned home.
That is to say, people whose claims have not succeeded.
Will these measures lead to lower demand from the Home Office for this type of housing for asylum seekers and the return of these HMOs over time?
We already know that the Home Office can't cope with what it's currently having to do.
Alright, well, timestamp is Zara Sultana.
Limiting access to family reunion for refugees will force children and spouses into the hands of the very people smugglers that the Home Secretary is seeking to smash. It will push them into unsafe dinghies, risking their lives. Would she be comfortable with this?
Home Secretary.
Well, I would urge her to look at the proposals on protection, work and study, and also on safe and legal routes. It is right that we try to pivot to a more humane system that privileges those who come not via paying people smugglers a lot of money. And on family reunification, let me just say to her this. British citizens at the moment have to meet thresholds and various qualifying tests before they can apply for family reunion. I think it is right that we bring the position in relation to refugees through the protection, work and study route to the same level.
And before I call the next member, members will have seen how many people are on their feet, and I will be needing to finish this statement by 8 o'clock. So please bear that in mind.
A proposal to
that there is no
Oh, here she is. Alright. Let's watch from around here.
Reviewed every 30 months. Is that a realistic aim? And is she clear that she can make the Home Office fit for the purpose she set out today?
Home Secretary.
Well, we're already supposed to do safe country reviews, and we will ensure that they are done every 2.5 years. We will also ensure that wherever possible, refugees move into the protection, work and study route instead. And I just say to him, I recognise the phrase not fit for purpose. I've been very clear that I don't think the Home Office is fit for purpose yet. There is new management at the Home Office. They're getting on with making the changes that are necessary, and I will ensure it is both fit for purpose and able to enact the reforms that I've set out today.
Sara Sultana.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sivanandan warned, and I quote, what Enoch Powell says today, the Conservatives say tomorrow, and Labour legislates the day after. Seizing valuables belong...
Dude, she's actually fucking unbearable. I actually, literally like a week ago, I would have said, Zara Starr's not that bad. She has been so insufferable this week. Holy fuck.
Able to enact the reforms that I've set out today.
Lara Sultana.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sivanandan warned, and I quote, what Enoch Powell says today, the Conservatives say tomorrow, and Labour legislates the day after. Seizing valuables belonging to asylum seekers, making refugees wait
So not what was said.
20 years before they can apply to settle permanently, and deporting entire families, including children, who have built new lives here because their country of origin is deemed safe. These measures are straight out of the fascist playbook. The Home
Dude, what? What?
Secretary has described herself as a child of immigrants, so I ask her, is she proud to introduce measures that punish and persecute desperate and...
If anything that controls borders is fascist, then yeah, sure, this is fascist. But I don't see how else this is fascist. I don't...
vulnerable people seeking sanctuary, and how does it feel to kick away the ladder and be praised by fascist Tommy Robinson? And I must add, he has a...
Order, Home Secretary. Home Secretary. Order, Home Secretary.
I'm just going to clarify a point of fact. She said I described myself as a child of immigrants. It's not a description, it's just a statement of fact. And everything else she said is beneath contempt.
Dude. Holy fuck. Dude, literally, I don't think Shabana has failed a single, like, back and forth here. I think she's literally just owned every single one.
Order, Home Secretary.
I'm just going to clarify a point of fact. She said I described myself as a child of immigrants. It's not a description, it's just a statement of fact. And everything else she said is beneath contempt.
Madam Deputy Speaker, migrants make immeasurable contribution to our communities. In Manchester, Russian, Wendy, who has Jamaican heritage, is a community health champion. Najma from Somalia leads local initiatives to tackle knife crime. And Hafsa grew up in the Middle East and leads nature improvements projects. So does my right honourable friend agree that the language we use to talk about immigration must reflect the important role immigrants play in the functioning of our nation?
Home Secretary.
I absolutely agree about the contribution that migrants and refugees make to our country, and it is precisely the reason that I'm making these reforms, because I can see a broken system that is creating deep division across our country, and I think it is important we not only fix this system but make sure that we retain public consent for having an asylum system at all.
Jim Allister.
At an earlier point in this debate, the Home Secretary said that nothing matters more to her than holding our own country together. Does she therefore accept that to succeed, her reforms must operate equally across the whole United Kingdom, including her adjustments to Article 8?
Oh my God, okay.
Stabilisation.
Is there anything else good here? Any other good moments, you think?
For not just our asylum system, but for our legal migration system.
Thank you for $5, Shimbley. Thank
very
you.
shortly, later this week, I believe, own courts.
The Home Secretary set out adjudicators. What is the
I'm just going by how much background noise rabble there is at any given moment to tell whether it's good or not. You know. So they will go.
To make sure that the United Kingdom will say no
to the broccoli.
Hear what.
And spread misinformation. Our government.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Look at it. Look at this fella's hair.
It's why.
Oh fuck.
Time when far right.
Low trust.
Oh wait, I'm retarded.
It's on me to make.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The proposal to raise the threshold for indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 20 is deeply concerning. At a time when far-right groups exploit fear and spread misinformation, our government should lead with compassion and fairness, not forcing some of the most vulnerable in our society to live in limbo for 2 decades? Will the Minister explain how denying security and rights for 2 decades reflects British values of justice and humanity? And what will access to services look like for people during that time?
Tell my honourable friend not to defend a status quo that sees people spend thousands of pounds paying people smugglers a ton of money to get on a boat and come across the channel through a dangerous crossing that puts their own lives and that of others at risk. I would really urge him not to defend a broken status quo, engage with the detail of these proposals which reflect a new protection work and study route which will be open to those who are offered core protection in this country, and that we will open new safe and legal routes as well.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the House share my concern that the scrutiny from the benches of
numbers on the
seeking asylum not socialist?
It seems like it's tapering out.
All
right. Sick. Well, that was a great Commons session. That was awesome. That was great. What's this? Is this the full interview? Please don't tell me it's the full interview here is 4 minutes. There's a Beth Rigby, Shabana Mahmood interview. Is there anything on the Sky website? Longer version? No, that looks like the full thing that they've got. Okay.
Home Secretary, there have been 49,000 irregular arrivals in the year to June 2025. That's under your government. It's a 27% increase on the previous year, 43,000 arrivals in small boats. It's getting worse under Labour.
Well, look, I think
it is, isn't it?
Look, I am horrified by those numbers. They're not acceptable.
It's getting worse,
and I
isn't
want them
it?
to go
In
down.
your first year of government, it's got worse.
The numbers are too high, and I want to bring them down.
But do you acknowledge that it's got worse in your first year?
I acknowledge that the numbers are too high, and they have gone up, and I want to bring them down. But what we have done as a government is we've got decision making up and running again when that had basically collapsed.
Can you just acknowledge it's got worse, though?
I have acknowledged that the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay.
I'm not happy about those numbers. I never will be happy about those numbers, and I am impatient to bring those numbers down.
You have described this as the biggest reforms in modern times. They're pretty radical for a Labour government. Nigel Farage responded to your plans saying you sound like a reform supporter. How does that make you feel?
I'm not really interested in anything that Nigel Farage has to say. I think that there are various individuals who at the moment are seeking to make mischief, and I'm not interested because I really mean it when I say I haven't had anything about other political parties and other politicians in my mind. I have
TMZ reporting. TMZ reporting. H3 podcast, Ela Klein. Boneheaded threats won't stop me. Human skulls in mail. Bogus CPS calls. H3 podcast host, Ela Klein, says she's dealing with all sorts of vile threats simply for being Jewish. She says someone even sent her 2 human skulls in the mail. Dude, what is this article? H3 podcast host Ela Klein says she's dealing with all sorts of vile. Okay, I read that part. Wait. The guy host of the comedy podcast tells TMZ she fears for her safety after 2 human skulls showed up at her office and cops were called to her home over bogus claims that her children were living in filth. We obtained parts of the human skull, photos of the human skulls, sent to Ela husband. What? Because they post them on social media. What the fuck do you mean? We obtained. Okay. Well, all right.
a solemn responsibility as the Home Secretary of this country who can see a broken asylum system. It is my job to fix it. I know people are angry about this broken asylum system, and I know that it is fueling division across our country. So it's my job to put that system to right, to reform it, and to unite our country.
He said you'd be welcome to join reform with these sorts of asylum.
Honestly, Nigel Farage can
They've always just been begging for coverage.
No, but really, you've spoken to me about him before, about how you think some of his policies are dog whistle politics.
Well,
How does it make you feel when he thinks you're aligning with him?
Because he's making mischief, so I'm not going to let him live rent-free in my head. And just because he said something doesn't mean to say that I have to respond to it just because he's making mischief.
Tommy Robinson endorsed your plan.
Well, I'll deal with that in just one moment. But the Reform Party currently has a policy to rip up indefinite leave to remain of those who have been long-term settled in our country. That is immoral. It's deeply shameful, and it is the wrong policy. That
Tommy
individual,
Robinson.
frankly, he can sod off too.
Home Secretary, in the chamber today, you used very strong language that you said you have been subjected to a really horrible racist slur. Have you found that this is getting worse? Is that your personal lived experience that racism is getting louder in this country? It's getting worse?
Well, I don't have to look to my own personal experience. I can see the experience of my own family and my constituents who are much more worried about racism and feel that there's more of that and Islamophobia around than has been the case in recent times. You know, I hear a cry from my own constituents loud and clear that they want the migration system problems that we have fixed because they feel that division is causing people to contest and giving free rein to people to contest their own belonging in their own land, that their safety and security in their own land is being challenged. I'm not willing to stand back and let that happen. I'm the sort of politician that's always going to roll her sleeves up and fix problems and try to bring people together.
Man. What the hell?
Election relies on you in this crisis, doesn't it? I mean, if you don't solve this immigration crisis and people seeing these illegal crossings, Labour cannot win the next election. How critical is it that you succeed? To be perfectly honest with you, Beth, I mean, we have a manifesto commitment on securing the borders. That's what we have to deliver. But nothing matters more to me than holding my own country together, not even winning a general election. That's not what is driving the decisions I'm making. What's driving the decisions I'm making is fulfilling my duty as the Home Secretary, fixing this broken system and uniting our country. What happens if you don't do this for Labour?
Well, that will be for the country to decide.